Good morning and welcome to another episode of Liam Reviews here at Northam's Haunted Book Factory. Today's review is not so much a review as it's a rant on an author who I don't dislike. I like him enough to have read 20 of his books over 20 years. But this is more a comparison between his old stuff to his new stuff. And two books in particular. I will start by talking about my favorite Dean Koontz book, The Mask. Now, The Mask is... I refuse to Google it. These are just my opinions. I think it was written in the late 80s, early 90s, probably early 90s, about a couple that can't have kids that adopt a teenage girl named Laura, and there's something going on with Laura, something supernatural, and things get worse and worse and worse until they find out that she used to be someone else in her past life. Now, it's got some really surreal scenes. It's got a really cool, chilling atmosphere. There's even a scene in it where an axe that isn't attached to anyone or anything comes smashing through a house and chases an old lady around. It sounds silly, but it's actually a really good scene. So yeah, The Mask, it's got a great ending, great characters. It's got a really cool feel. I've read it over and over. First read it when I was a teenager. I think it's great. Now moving on to The Good Guy. Now, this was written much later, in the late 2000s, I'm pretty sure. Not going to Google it, like I said. I'm just going to talk about it, but based on what I know from reading it. It's a really fast-paced book about a guy that has to save a woman from a hitman. Now, anyone who's read a lot of Dean Koontz knows that this is a repeating formula of his. So at the start, it's got a really cool intro. It's actually got really smart, fast, funny dialogue. But it really quickly moves into just familiar Dean Koontz territory. It's not supernatural. That's not the problem with it. The problem is it's definitely been done before, and a lot better. He's got a book called Watchers from way back in the day, which is pretty much about the same thing. An ex-military guy who's trying to live a normal life, saving a woman from a bad government agency and some monster. And that book's actually really good. But The Good Guy, it's just cliched to the max. I mean, the bad guy's a lot of fun, but the ending is just tacked on. Like, I have two friends that have read it, and they both say the same thing, like, what was up with that ending? They told me that before I even read it, and as I was enjoying the book, I'm like, I think I'm going to like the ending, and I didn't like the ending. I thought it was silly, and I probably won't read him much anymore. So yeah, in conclusion, I think Dean Koontz is a really good writer. It's not his fault he gets a lot of flack. I think when I was a kid, every single book that came out of Dean Koontz had written on the front of it, Dean Koontz is several steps beyond Stephen King. So he doesn't write anything like Stephen King. The only thing remotely close to anything Stephen King's ever written is a Dean Koontz book called Phantoms, which was made into a movie starring Ben Affleck. But yeah, he's nothing like King. Nothing at all. So the fact that he was constantly compared to King, I don't think it did him any favors. None at all. So, I don't know. I recommend reading The Mask. I don't recommend reading The Good Guy. I recommend reading anything by Dean Koontz, late 80s and all through the 90s. Apart from that, I don't know. You be the judge. You can read them if you like. Personally, I'm not the biggest fan. And that most definitely is it for today. Tomorrow, I'm going to be reviewing a short story by Daphne du Maurier called Don't Look Now. So tune in for that. Thanks.